Hello, my name is Camilla, and this was a presentation prepared for an investor workshop for Collett's Corner. And this was done after the fact for folks who were unable to make it for the evening but wanted access to the slides and the content. We have 4 topics tonight that we will go through, and at the end of each one for the evening we had a question that we asked the audience and then had an open discussion. If you have feedback at each one of those times or any other feedback that you'd like to send through, please do. We certainly are open to it, and we really need it right now. The purpose of having this investor workshop is to get your input. There will be 2 other presentations, and so the purpose of tonight is to make sure that you are included in the very early stages of this investment proposal so that we can get your feedback and make sure that we shape it to the community's interest. The site is located in Lyttelton, the port town outside of Christchurch. It is a prominent corner site on the commercial downtown, and it was left vacant in the post-earthquake context. The site is just under 1,000 square meters, and the building itself will be approximately 2,300 meters. And the proposal we're moving forward with is to create an attraction in Lyttelton, and so in the post-earthquake context, a lot of the liveliness was lost from the town, and one of the things that the community really wanted was to bring back the liveliness to the township. And so what we're doing is we're putting together a proposal that then for a building that the community can collectively own that would also bring a livelihood to the town. The uses in the building will be hot baths, co-working space, restaurant, an apart hotel, a bar, and a cinema. We're currently running a design competition. There are 3 finalists that are preparing developed design concepts, and they will be sharing their developed concepts on September 6th at the Lyttelton Arts Factory at 6 p.m. I hope if you're hearing this before then, you will come. It would be wonderful to have anyone there who is interested in this project to hear from these designers. Some of the teams are actually flying in from London for this. There are Kiwi teams that are considering moving back to New Zealand to be a part of this project if they win the competition. So it'd be great if Lyttelton showed up to show them a warm welcome and a great appreciation. We paused at this stage in the workshop to ask folks what excites you about Collett's Corner. And if you're hearing this online and you'd like to answer that and send me an email, I sure would love to hear from you. It helps me to understand what it is that you're connecting to, and then we can better shape this investment opportunity around your interests. The next section here was presented by James at the workshop, but I'm going to take the lead on it, and we're going to move ahead. Unfortunately, he's sick today, so I'm going to do my best, but he's certainly, he's the partner in our in OHU that holds the financial side of things. But so if we have any other questions that we don't get answered through this video presentation, please do shout out and ask us, because we can certainly answer those for you. To start out with, we recognize that a lot of people don't know what equity crowdfunding is just yet, and one of the first misunderstandings that we've encountered is that a lot of people seem to think that we're asking for people to gift us money to build a private building. Couldn't be further from that. What equity crowdfunding is effectively the opportunity to invest collectively and get a return collectively. So what it looks like is a whole lot of people get to make contributions towards a common cause, and we all get to benefit from the returns that are generated. The thing that I particularly like about this is that we can collectively use our money to create positive change in the world. And so this is what we're using as an equity crowdfunding platform called Pledge Me that will allow us to collectively invest money in order to build this building. They have provided us with 3 examples that the Pledge Me platform have run successfully. Most recently is the Ocho campaign, which was a chocolate factory in Dunedin, and they had Cadbury had wanted to pull out, and they were going to close the factory, and a group of passionate people in the community came together, and they ended up putting a proposal together so that the community could collectively own the chocolate factory and this building. And some interesting things about their campaign is that they capped it 11%, so no one shareholder could own more than 11%. The other thing that was fascinating is they reached their $2 million maximum target in 36 hours, and they have 3,000 investors. So that really shows the power of collective ownership and change in a town. And so yeah, a very successful campaign. Another project that was just done recently was for medicinal marijuana in Hikurangi, which is in the East Cape. And they raised, again, their $2 million target, but what was really fascinating about this one is that the first week it was a private campaign, so you were required to have a link in order to purchase shares. And it was offered first to locals within the East Cape area. And they raised $1.4 million through their private campaign. That means East Cape Locals Investment. And then they reached their $2 million target once they opened it up to wider New Zealand. And they had 1,000 investors. This is a campaign, there were actually 2 campaigns, equity crowdfunding campaigns that Atik ran. And this was a young entrepreneur that came out of the University of Canterbury about 3 or 4 years ago now. And she is making bars, solid bars for soap, and not for soap, she doesn't like it when it's called soap, for shampoo and conditioner and other things that you might find in your bathroom that are in bottles. And her mission is to prevent plastic bottles from being made and providing the same contents in bars. And Brianne ran 2 successful equity crowdfunding campaigns. And what's interesting about her campaign is that it was 70% women, which is rather rare in investment bases, and 80% were her customers, and 3 were chemists, and one of those chemists solved a problem. And so what's great is that we can go to our crowd, and we're not just getting a financial return, but we're also seeking input and help with these various businesses that are getting started. Very successful business here in Christchurch. So how does it work? We get that a lot. It's not that hard, really. It's a company with shares, and the shares are sold. We are going to propose a 10% cap for investors so that we can get a broad base of investors and distribute wealth. Very open to feedback on that. If you are considering to be an investor and that is off-putting to you, get in touch. Let us know. This is all, let's say, a draft that we are sharing for input. Who can invest? Through the Pledge Me campaign platform, all New Zealander residents and citizens. But what we will do, a lot like the Hikurangi campaign, is we will make it so that the Lytteltonians, anybody who lives and works here, can invest first, and then after that we will open up to wider New Zealanders, and so that that'll be after the first week. The way we're doing that, if you want to be on one of the first investors, we need to ask you to sign up for our interested investors, and so that we can make sure to keep you posted as to when the campaign opens and then give you the link for it. It would also really encourage investors outside of Lyttelton to sign up so that we can keep you informed as the investment proposal takes shape, and we can ask you questions about what your interests are, and so we can better inform the opportunity as we develop it. The financial projection currently is based on average square meter rates. The total capital cost is $9.6 million as an estimate. We will revisit this once we have a design chosen, which will be announced on September 14th. We will take some time to recalibrate our numbers and again make sure that we're within budget. Of that $9.6 million, we're assuming roughly a debt to equity split of 50-50, and so we will be raising a total of approximately $4.9 million. And again, this is our target, and we could raise more equity depending on the demand, or we could raise less. If we needed to take on more debt, we can. Banks, I believe, are willing to lend for a 30% investment, so we do have a cushion there, but we've calculated this current projections based on a 50-50 split, roughly. There are currently 2 rounds of investment projected, and in the first round, which is the one that we're currently in the middle of, it is a total of $1.2 million, a little bit over, and early investors, the shares cost less because they're taking on greater risk, and they get a greater return therefore. In the equity crowdfunding round, we will be raising a maximum of $2 million, and outside of that we will have exempt investors who may be contacted via partnerships. And that will bring us to a total of $3.7 million of investment at that stage. And that's how we plan on reaching our $4.9 million targets for total investment in order to build the building. What shares will cost in the equity crowdfunding round in February is $100. So the minimum that people need in order to invest is $100, and that would give you 1 share in the building. To give you a bit of a sense of what that value might be as you were to project it across time, if you invested $100, your dividend return would gradually appreciate, and these are in nominal terms. So, and you'll see that one spike at 2040. That's when we project bank debt to be repaid, and therefore you end up with a 100% ownership of the building, and you'll be getting a greater dividend return at that time. The projected value for the $100 equity investment, which is different than the dividend, also increases. So you'll own the asset, which is basically a share of the building, and you'll be getting a dividend return from leases that are being paid into the building. So that'll be an income that'll be generated and distributed to shareholders. This is the value of the asset as it's appreciating in nominal terms over time. So if you add those two together, if you were to take all of the dividends and the value of the asset and combine them over time, the total value in nominal terms, so this is distorted, is by 2050, you can see this almost exponential increase, which isn't quite accurate. So what we do in financial language and in financial terms is we bring that back to what's called a net present value. So because there's inflation, $100 today and $100 in 2050 aren't one and the same, because $100 is depreciating over time. So a net present value takes into consideration the depreciation of $100 over time. And so what your real value in a projected sense from today, today's investment of $100 through to 2050 would approximately be a double of your value in projected terms. One of the things we are also asked quite often is the asset sellable? Like, can I sell my shares? And the answer is yes, to other shareholders right now. And so there's a platform that we can use called Share Market here in New Zealand, and we will set this up. At this time, you can only sell to other shareholders. But in the future, what we're really hoping for is a market so that we could start to sell across OHU projects. And there are examples of this that exist in the world, so I don't think this is too far out. But because the Collett's Corner project is OHU's first project, we don't have other projects to start to develop a platform of that nature with. But we intend to as we have more projects come online. So I could see that within the, let's say, 3 to 5 year span. At this stage, we paused in the workshop to make sure that everybody was comfortable with what we were sharing, and also answer any questions. And we also provoked the question of what would you want to know before you invested in Collett's Corner? Essentially, what would give you confidence? We would love to hear from you on this. If you have feedback at this stage, it would be great to know that. Again, if you would just email me any comments, that would be great. And or, yeah, email me and let's queue up a coffee or a tea or a Skype meeting. So one of the great things about pooling our money in groups of communities and groups of people that want to work together on a common cause is we get to also frame what is the social change that we want to manifest in the world together. And so there's what we've done in this section is start to bring that question to the audience and to you, to ask what is that we would want to do through the Collett's Corner project. We have some hypotheses, but we would like to test those with you this evening. In the OHU family of projects, we often use the word community, and I'm quite careful to define it as a group of people working together on a common purpose. And OHU, Office for Holistic Urbanism, in Te Reo means people working together. We have 3 purposes. We're essentially a community-minded property development company, and we build community by building buildings. We create connected places, which creates a sense of belonging, and we distribute returns equitably. And essentially what that means is that a number of people can invest in buildings, particularly these commercial buildings, rather than one or two people owning our commercial landscapes. And that means we can all be gaining and giving fairly. And I think this will change how we relate to our built realm, is if we can all feel like we are a part of its creation. As I mentioned, we're using the Pledge Me campaign, Pledge Me platform, in order to run the Lyttelton equity crowdfunding campaign in February. And they're wonderfully aligned on purpose. Their tagline is helping Kiwis fund the things they care about. And we are about building community by building buildings. And so it's a natural fit for us. One of the other things that I kind of frame this conversation around is the notion of regenerative economics, and what that means in a very short nutshell, and there's a number of academics that work in this space, but it means profit goes to purpose, as opposed to profit going to a few, being extracted to a few investors. And so that means what we're doing through the Collett's Corner project is we're creating livelihood and liveliness in the township of Lyttelton. And that means many people within the township of Lyttelton are getting a little bit of a return. And that is a distributed return off of an investment in a commercial property. What might typically happen in a commercial property, particularly on a site of that nature, is a foreign investor would come in, build a building, and take as much money for themselves as possible out of the leasing of that building. In this context, what we're looking at is how do we actually retain that money within at least New Zealand, and particularly Lyttelton, so that when we invest in property, we get a return from it together. We're also investing in people's well-being by generating distributed incomes. We all gain a little bit, and I think that there's something really a lot to be said for starting to care for the whole and developing collective ownership. I think the other piece of regenerative economics is we leave the planet better than how we found it. And it's just about stewardship and responsibility at this day and age. Collett's Corner's social purpose, these are a draft of where we think we are. And again, this is just an opportunity for us to share those with you and get a sense if these feel like they might be things that you would like to be investing in with your money. Working together to do things differently, that's what OHU is about in the way of property development. And we're rebuilding the heart of Lyttelton together, and we're coming together to create a prominent building on the town's main street. Investing in livelihood and liveliness, and I've mentioned that a couple times, and creating a sense of belonging and connection through how the building is designed, so making sure that there's comfortable places for us to gather and connect with our loved ones. And then demonstrating the power of collective ownership, and just showing through an example here in Lyttelton, probably one of the first in New Zealand, what it means to collectively own and develop a building together, and show that we can do that in our main town centers, and that creates a very different relationship to placemaking within our public realm. So on the back of that kind of, let's say, broad summary of social investment, my question to the audience is what is the positive social change that you would like to see realized through the Collett's Corner project? Again, if you have any answers to this or thoughts, we would love to hear from you. The last piece of this presentation is to talk through the timeline. We're currently in the design and planning stage, and this will take us through July of next year. These are the upcoming events that are happening in the immediate future. So there's a series of investor workshops coming up in both October and November. We will be testing the pitch and the proposal with you, so we would love your feedback then as well. And if you could attend those meetings, that would be great. If not, again, we will prepare these presentations so that you can see them afterwards. We have the design competition that will be announced. The winning team will be announced on the 14th. And equity crowdfunding will open on the 14th of February and be closing on the 13th of March. Again, I want to emphasize that these are all currently our targeted dates, but a lot of this is contingent on us landing this initial investment, and so if we don't land that, these dates will shift. My closing ask to you is let us know if you're interested in being an investor, and so that we can keep you informed. Please log on to www.collettscorner.nz and click on the Interested Investor button. And then if you're in Lyttelton, please do join us at LAF on September 6th. Thank you. And that's a close for this presentation. I hope, again, to hear from anyone that is listening to this. We would love your feedback. Thank you.